everyone, and welcome back to 417 Fox. I'm tired. This car has been a job. I'm just gonna be real, alright? So we've had some problems. The booth probably didn't work out quite as good as I wanted it to. I learned a lot with the booth. You'll see that in the last video. But I just want to be real, because right now, you know, my original plan when I was going to start this channel, I wanted to do 2 videos a week. These last couple of weeks, I've been doing 1. So I probably underestimated between working my full-time job, trying to paint a car, finish a car before a show, also have a trip planned in between all that. So I appreciate you guys sticking with me. Alright, so with all that being said, what we're going to be doing on today's video is we're going to go through our wet sanding and buffing process on the Two Tone Cobra Clone. So I'm going to walk you over here and we're going to use the hood as an example. Now guys, if you look at this hood, man, it looks pretty dang good. I've not touched this thing since it's been painted. Not yet. Well, those metallics just look amazing. Now, the things you probably can't see on camera is some of your minor imperfections. Even if you take a car to a professional painter and they use a professional paint booth, you're still going to get some nibs in your paint. And when I say nibs, that's either trash, dirt, you could even get some fish eyes. Fish eyes are a little harder to address. But I'm going to try to get here close. I can see a few, like there's a nib right there. There's a nib, and you can feel them. And that's just dirt. It's either got in your clear. So what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to sand past some of those. Now you can see that there's not a whole lot of orange peel. I would call this even a little bit better than today's modern cars factory orange peel from Ford, because their peel is kind of terrible. But what we're going to do is we're going to start off, and Angela, she's been a tremendous help on the wet sanding. Like you see the fenders over there, they're already ready. They're wet sanded and ready to buff. And I saved the hood to show you guys. So we'll go through here and we'll denib everything first. And this shouldn't take a whole lot of wet sanding. We'll probably just have to take one pass with 1500 on it after we denib it. And then we'll be ready for our wet sanding process with the machine sander and then buffing. And we'll get this thing looking like glass. So one thing you want to do when you're going to do any wet sanding or buffing or anything like that, you need to make sure you can see. You know, if you got, most of you guys are in your garage, right? Just like me. This is in essence my garage. They're usually not the best lit. So either get something that you can see, some type of headlamp bulb, or you can make something contraption like I've made here. Just pick this stuff up at the hardware store, 2x2s. That's just made out of 2x2s, and the cheap sockets you can buy over there in the electrical section at Lowe's or Menards or Home Depot, and then put some bulbs in it. That way when I'm looking at this, I can even move this around so I can really see what I've got going on. Get yourself some good microfiber cloths and get yourself some good quality wet sandpaper. Now when I'm wet sanding, I like to go ahead and soak the paper for a good 10-15 minutes first. Go ahead and get it. You do not want to start wet sanding just having the paper not soaked. You'll end up scratching it with the abrasive edges on it until you get it softened up. Alright guys, what I've done is this is one of my Durablocks, and I take this size for my denibbing stuff, and there's a couple of different things you can do. I've had this one cut for a long time. This works great on Fox bodies, especially in your molding trim around your bumper or your side moldings. If you cut it just right, that will fit right into that little gap on your moldings. So I just cut a little short piece. This is 1000 grit. This is 1000 grit. Just wrap it up, get it wet, and that's what I use for denibbing. Also, what I've got right here is kind of like a sanding stone. It's very fine grit, and I picked this up at the paint store. You have to get this thing wet and it will retain the water. This right here is a good way to, especially if you've had like a run or something and you need to flat down an area, this works pretty good on that. It can get a little aggressive, so it just depends on the application. Sometimes I'll use this on denibbing. And I think this is real similar to around 800 or 1000 grit as well, because it doesn't take much to remove these scratches, not unless you just really bear down on it. But for this application right now, not unless I run across something, I do actually have a little bit of a sag right here on the front, and I will probably use this stone on the front. But for any of these small nibs here, I'm going to go ahead and use this. And I like to have this light shining across here, so that way anytime I go ahead and work on one, which most of these are really small, they're not going to take a lot of work. I like just a crisscross pattern. Pretty much you carry that type of pattern all through the car, whether you're block sanding or wet sanding. And keep me a good microfiber. And once you wipe that, you'll have the haze there, but you'll be able to see if you got that out. And that's gone. So all these little bitty spots that I've got right here, you just have to go through and take some time. But this is what makes the difference between having a paint job that looks the very best that it can when you put this extra work on taking care of any of those small little imperfections. Look guys, this paint job is not perfect. And the thing is most any paint job, not unless you're paying $10,000, $20,000 for it, is not going to be perfect. So guys, I'm going to be here for a few minutes. I'm going to put you on time lapse, and I'll go ahead and get all of these little imperfections taken care of. Then I'll pick you back up when I go ahead and get the 1500 grit out, and we'll go ahead and run over this whole hood with 1500 grit, just leveling off some of this orange peel. So this is the area that I just sanded with the 1500 grit. Any little spot like, I'm not sure if you can see that, but I'm sure you can see this. See, you still see all of the orange peel. Let me get this where the shadow's not in it so bad. All this orange peel right in there. All that orange peel. I missed all that, but for the most part, this didn't have a lot of orange peel in it, so I didn't have to hit it real hard to begin with. And I did that pretty quick. So I may hit that just again a little quick, but I can tell you right now, looking at this, I'm going to be able to take it straight to the 2000 pad, because there's really not going to be a need to continue to refine this down anymore. And I'll be able to just take my machine sander on it next. Now guys, if you wanted to refine it a little bit more, get it a little slicker, you can go right with 2000, block that out, and then go to say a 3000 pad on your machine. And a lot of guys are even going, and I'm going to try it this time, I've never done it, go to 5000 after the 3000, and that will save me some time on buffing. So what that will allow me to do is skip the wool pad phase, which I hate a wool pad. Alright guys, that 1500 leveled this out really good because there wasn't a whole lot of peel in this hood to begin with. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of those 1500 grit scratches. And I'm going to go ahead and use my DA. I also have an interface pad on here that's a 1/2 inch interface pad that just adds a little bit of softness. Normally on something this flat, I wouldn't put an interface pad on here just because these 2000 grit discs are already foam. But when you run along the side here and you turn this on its side, you have a chance of your backing pad digging into your paint surface. So that keeps me away with that angle to keep from digging into the surface. So I'm just letting this rest on there anyway. I'm not pressing. I'm just going to go ahead and run over the whole thing. I like to count in my head when I'm over an area, and I'll do a section at a time, and I'll count 2 full passes at a medium speed or whatever you want to call it. I'll do it in real time first, and then I'll put you guys on time lapse. Alright guys, so I got the camera up here a little closer for you. I keep my soapy water. I just use Dawn soap, adds a little bit of lubrication to it. I like to always just start right here on this half of the cowl. Again, watch yourself on your edges. You do not want to let this thing just roll over your edges. You're going to watch your edge as you're coming down, and I like to picture frame it. I'll start here, picture frame, go all the way around. Alright guys, after you get your pass done, now it's time to go ahead and get it wiped off and dried, and just take a look. And if you can still see some of your scratch marks from the 1500, go over it again. I can still see where I've got just a few little areas that need to be gone back over again. So I'm going to go ahead and do one more pass on this area, and then that way I'm going to know, okay, I'm going to need to go ahead and probably do 3 or 4 passes on the rest of it. And that way we make sure, because there's no need in going to the next step of sanding because the next step is not going to get those scratches out. You need to make sure you go with your next step up. Alright guys, I think I'm ready to go ahead and step to 3000. Let's get this 3000. Won't take as many passes on the 3000. And then we're going to try that 5000 out. And then we'll go ahead and get this thing buffed to a mirror finish. Well, boys, I won't tell you, she ain't looking bad at all. That's up to the 3000. This right here is where I would usually stop, but I'm trying something new this time. I've got 5000 pad on here now, and we're going to see if that's going to let me skip the step of using a wool pad. Man, I will tell you, whew, guys, I hope you can see I get excited at this stage, because I cannot wait to get this buffed so you can see what it's going to look like, and I hope it shows up in camera, because I can tell right now at this stage just how nice this is going to look. Let's get this 5000 done. Well, boys, I'm not sure, but it does look pretty dang good. If this helps me replace the step of the wool pad, I'll be doing 5000 every time. But there's only one way to know, and that's let's get that foam pad out, and let's go ahead and get to buffing with the foam pad. Here's how she looks right now. This is all the way up to 5000. Doesn't look too bad. I like it. It's time to get to buffing. I know there's a lot of different compounds. There's no kind of sponsor or anything like this. This is what I found that works. I use the 3M Perfect It. It's a multi-step. They actually have a 3-step. I only just use the 2, which is a step 1. I also use the 3M pad, the waffle pad. So I'll go with step 1. If you were doing a wool pad, you would just basically be the wool pad and still use this step 1. But we're going to go ahead and go straight to our foam pad, and then we'll see how well that does. Normally it still takes 2 passes with the foam pad, even after going with the wool. I am hoping to really take my time and go ahead and go with just 1 pass with the foam pad. One tip I can give you is to keep it wet. Do not let your paint get dry. That's a really quick way to burn through your clear. That's a really quick way to burn through your clear coat. Heat is your enemy. Keep it moving. Do not stay in one spot. You build up heat, that's going to burn your clear coat. Also, the biggest, probably the biggest thing you can screw up is converging edges. And what I mean by converging edges, say for example, right here will be a converging edge. So if you're running your buffer here, it's going to catch on the underside and on the top side of this, and it will burn the paint and the clear. Also a converging corner here, that will really go quick. You've got your corners up in the front, plus where your cowl starts. So those areas there, And guys, I can tell you, because I'm going to tell you by experience, I have burned through paint with a buffer before, and it sucks. It sucks really bad, because then you're faced with the situation when really the truly best way to fix it is to put base on that area and re-clear the whole thing, because you really can't spot clear. You can spot clear for a temporary amount of time, but there's a very good chance where you sanded it to blend it out, you'll end up peeling, because the mill thickness is going to be so thin at that outer edge. So take your time. Every one of your compounds that you buy, whether it be McGuire's or 3M or Wizards or whoever, is going to tell you where to run it at. I would always suggest running it at the slower speeds of recommended speed, because that's also going to let you control your buffer a little bit more. If you crank this thing all the way up to, say for example, this one says compound between 1200 and 2000 max RPM. I usually run it at about 1400 RPMs. You can do 1200. Heck, you could actually do 1000 if you want. Just don't go too fast. The faster you go, the quicker you can really screw up. And there's no need in screwing up once you've made it all the way to this point. And now we're at the finishing stages. We want to take our time, take some buffing on it, let the buffer do its work, don't press, watch your edges, watch your corners, and really take your time. Also, I've got a handheld buffer, and many times what I will do with my handheld buffer is all those little areas like that I can really control, I will come in here with that handheld buffer and do any of those areas, which is probably what I'm going to do on this hood, because if I screw up, it's going to be a bad day. Alright guys, we're just going to start right here. You start in small areas. I'll get that on there and then kind of dab it around in this area that I'm going to work. I'm going to take my speed down to about 1200 just to get it started. This is a soft start DeWalt, which makes your starting, instead of just slinging the crap everywhere, it'll give you a nice soft start where you're not slinging it all over the place. Still gonna sling, but I'm so careful at the edges, guys. Just gonna let the pad do its work. Work it in a little bit, then I'll usually go ahead and kick the speed up to about 1400. If you do an edge, what you want to do is you want to run it off the edge. Don't stop and come back. So if I'm going to do this edge right here, I'm just going to run it off the edge. Like that. Alright, so let's see what we got. There's a little bit of swirl in it, but it's not bad, guys. I'm going to tell you, it's not bad at all. Alright guys, so with the one pass, with the white pad and the white one step, step one, it turned out pretty good. Now what I've done is, I like to do this also when I just did it with spot on the buffing, but change over to my black pad, use this little Harbor Freight 12-volt polisher. I love this little deal. Now these pads I don't buy from Harbor Freight, I get these from my paint supplier, but I like to go ahead and go around the whole perimeter, any of these edges that you don't really want to burn through, and go ahead and get all those polished first, and then I'll work on the largest surface area with my big polisher. So I'm going to get my pad changed over to a black pad, and we'll see how good that works. It usually takes 2 passes regardless on polishing to make sure it is you get any of your swirl marks out of it. We'll get started doing that now. Alright, so I have my step 2 perfect and what I like to do Since there is zero lubrication on this hood right now, this is going to add the lubrication. I don't like to squirt it out. I don't like to put it on the pad to start with. I like to go ahead and just rub a thin layer using a microfiber, and I think that seems to work best for me. So I'll go ahead and get a little bit on my microfiber and work the area, one area at a time, and just get a good thin layer, not too thick. You don't need as much of this stuff as you do, say, a rubbing compound. Your speed setting on this with the Perfect It is the same as it is on your compound, is that you'll be between 12 and 2,000. Now I usually will go a little faster on this, but I'll pick up the speed as I continue to polish when I'm finishing out, and I'll also lighten up on it a little bit. But I'm gonna go ahead and start right at about 1,000 to get it worked in. One pass with that step 2 polish. What I did was start with 1,000 speed and went ahead and upped it to 1,800 RPMs. That seemed to finish it out really nice. Again, I'm being very careful around any of the converging edges or corners to make sure you don't burn through in those areas. But guys, take a look. That ultra blue is one beautiful Fox body color. And look at the reflection in this. Alright guys, so I'm going to wrap this video up. If you hadn't already, make sure you smash that subscribe button. I'm sorry the videos are coming out a little bit more sporadic right now. We'll get back on a consistent schedule soon. I'll see you on the next one.